And this is what we've seen. 500,000 women and children in an area that was populated very densely by kids. The official numbers were 50% of these people were under the age of 15. 50% of them. And now an official occupation is being announced. We're going to go to this, what the press is talking about here. Here's this senior correspondent, John Huddy, talking about this announcement.
Throughout the region on the ground here. One of the major headlines tonight is that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly siding with a full occupation of Gaza and also enhanced military operations in the parts of Gaza where it's believed that hostages are still being held. We know there's an intense amount of activity in the central and northern part of Gaza, where some estimated 20,000 Hamas terrorists still continue to launch attacks on IDF forces there as they're looking for the hostages and basically trying to degrade and destroy Hamas and other terrorist.
What attacks could they be launching? We'll talk about this.
The Prime Minister also calling on the Red Cross to demand access to those hostages, to get them basically medical access, to get them food as well, including the two, as you mentioned, whose images were released by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in really a vicious psychological warfare tactic, showing them clearly emaciated and suffering and showing the signs of starvation.
This vicious tactic that they're talking about here, let's just remind you, these are the daily living conditions for the people who rightfully belong there, who just want to live their lives, who have committed no crimes other than wanting to live their lives in their homeland, in their motherland, that they have occupied since the days of Christ, that they have called their home for 5,000 years. And even under the threat of death and rape and force and bombs and guns and torture, they have stayed. They have always come back. They don't want to leave. And this is why we so extensively covered Donald Trump's ambitions for, Trump Gaza. And when he put out on his official truth handle on his X account propaganda videos showing him sitting poolside with Benzion Milkowski, the wanted war criminal who has arrest warrants issued in his name by the ICC, Benjamin Netanyahu. Here's Donald Trump sitting poolside sipping Mai Tais with Benjamin Netanyahu in a resort that was built atop the bones of dead children. And we had a problem with that. That doesn't represent a morally upright, Christian-founded country. That doesn't represent any of the principles or values or convictions that I have, nor does it represent the values of the majority of Americans as represented in a poll where now Gallup is saying that only 32% of Americans support Israel at this point. Can you imagine being a part of the 32% of people who look at this and say, yeah, I support this. I support tearing these children apart limb from limb. I support decimating all of their schools, libraries, all of their infrastructure. I support obliterating the hospitals and making sure that these people can't go get medical treatment. I support depriving them of the electricity and the food and the water that's necessary for the sustainability of life. Americans are supporting, paying for that, cheering on this man who really hasn't fulfilled any campaign promises at all whatsoever that were critical starting in 2015. So for over a decade now, Donald Trump has not fulfilled these critical campaign promises. Our borders are non-existent. Terrorists, real terrorists, are flooding over with ambitions to actually carry out, as the foot soldiers of the Jew, their mission to its completion so that they can accomplish greater Israel. There is nothing that is going to stop these people, and whomever gets in their way is going to meet their demise if they get their way. It does not matter if you are a child. These Talmudic Satanists say in their holy book that they are allowed to, encouraged to rape children. The Talmud tells them explicitly that they were chosen by God to carry out these rapes and to carry out this murder and to destroy anyone who gets in their way, that they were chosen by God to be the arbiters of life and death, to subjugate and rule over all of humanity. And everywhere that they have gone, they have attempted to further their efforts toward the accomplishment of that conquest. And anybody who stands in the way gets painted as the boogeyman by the media that they control. I was having a conversation with Frankie Stocks last night where you can go through all of the major broadcast networks. You can talk about all of the cable news networks, starting from CBS to Paramount, and you can go right back to who it is that owns them and funds them. And everywhere you go, pulling the levers of power under every rock, around every tree that you look behind, every blade of grass, if there is a position of power that affects the information that you digest, it is a Jew. They control the media. They control the flow of information. They control where the bombs get shipped. They control where the pallets of cash get shipped. During Obama, we sent pallets of cash to Iran, who is now the boogeyman for what? The pagers, the attempted assassination on Donald Trump, anything that they can use. And the only thing that's missing, rest his soul, is Toby Keith writing a song talking about putting the boot in your, because that's the American way. They have tried everything and yet still have only been able to muster up 32% support from Americans for any kind of kinetic confrontation at all on behalf of Israel. That's a fake number as well. That's a number that is being used, that is, these polls are conducted by the very same people that control the Fox News channel, by the very same people that own and fund and operate CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, all of the cable and major broadcast news networks. So wherever you go to get this information, if it's a source that's reporting the truth like ours, then of course you're going to find in your search queries that we are anti-Semitic, hate-filled people that you shouldn't pay any attention to. But now here we are. The official occupation has been announced. We are about to see an amount of bloodshed and an amount of gruesome death that we have not before seen. And in the first 10 minutes of this film, Occupied, you can see very gruesome death. And no, it's not a film that you should show to your children. It's not a film that you should sit around and watch with your kids, because in Occupied, we wanted to bring you what at the time nobody else was bringing you. And now since then, we have just become desensitized to this. We can go online and we can look in 4K every day, no matter where you look, it's everywhere. It permeates Instagram and Meta platforms, although be it, I can't be there with a workout video, but we can watch children being blown to pieces, cut to pieces, starved to death. And I am supposed to be sympathetic to this man who's fighting on behalf of the synagogue of Satan to expand their borders, to run these people out, to annex entire regions, to slowly kill them, to take all of their infrastructure away, and to starve an entire people. But yet I am supposed to be sympathetic to this man that the media keeps showing me. The media that we know has been confirmed to be the mouthpiece of the empire of lies. Do you remember during COVID-19 when we saw Chinamen just dropping dead all over the place in the name of COVID-19 that was rushing its way our direction? And we were supposed to be fearful. The chaos has to continue worldwide in order for any kind of faction of support to rise up from the ashes of what used to be a morally upright populace. But since Donald Trump, all of that has just vacated our society. Since then, nobody seems to care what's morally upright. Since then, nobody seems to care about us being a predominantly Christian country founded by Christians for Christians under God. And now it's just about worshiping Trump and everything that he does. So when I said, and it sounded hyperbolic, that child sex trafficking operations and pedophiles and child sex traffickers and sexually degenerate psychopaths with a lust of money and power and platform and fame and control. When I said that those people control our government to the extent that the military-industrial complex, who, by the way, enjoys its front lines and its headquarters in Israel, because you can't criticize it because this is the Israel of the Bible and these are God's chosen people. Just ask the Rothschilds from the city of London who purchased this thing and just arbitrarily scribbled it on a map in 1948. You're not allowed to criticize those efforts. And people will actually support this because this is something that Trump is going to put his stamp of approval on. And if you don't think that Donald Trump is going to put his stamp of approval on the annexation, the official military occupation, the gruesome, massive amount of death of 1.8 million people that inevitably we are going to have to see in order for this occupation to be an official full-scale military occupation, these people have to die. When Benjamin Netanyahu says we are going to control and occupy the region, that means this is now the expanded borders of Israel. That's what that means. That doesn't mean that we are going to control the chaos that's happening in Gaza and that we're going to make sure that these Palestinians have the necessary nourishment for survival. That doesn't mean we're going to allow them to sustain life, although be it miserable, inside of this open-air concentration camp, this open-air prison. We're going to allow these conditions to be restored to where they have only just the bare minimum for just mere survival. No, it means we're going to kill them. It means that at the end of a gun barrel that was provided by you, these soldiers, likely contractors from the United States government, where this whole contractor thing is a different issue altogether as well that we haven't even really discussed or unpacked fully, but this was a phenomenon that started back in Desert Storm. This was something where you had very ambitious people, Americans, who said, I want to support my country, put a gun in my hand so that I can go shoot anybody who comes near these poppy seed fields so that we can ensure that Americans get hooked up on opiates. Americans have been used, whether enlisted or swore an oath to the Constitution and believe that they're serving our country and protecting its national security interests and keeping us safe from the sand so they don't come here and blow us up all off the face of the planet. But also people who didn't take that oath, who didn't swear that oath, who didn't put their hand on the Bible and swear to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. These people are just so ambitious that they'll volunteer to go work for some contractor like Blackwater and go and stand watch at these poppy seed fields and kill the workers or anybody else, children, anybody that comes too close to these very secured areas, because we need to help with this war on drugs. We need to ensure that all of this poppy seed gets harvested and in the hands of the Jew so that they can turn this stuff into opiates and get it into the hands of the drug cartels, which we've covered on this program, that these IDF soldiers and Israeli intelligence officers and Jews teach how to become the most ruthless killers all over the place. They literally go to Mexico and train people who then later become known as the pseudonym, the Butcher, because they literally butcher children that get in their way. And mothers are running around Mexico asking their government for permission to dig these people up. All of this has happened at the hands of the Jew, and all of this has happened because these people are protecting themselves from being exposed as the pedophile monsters that they are. So yes, all of these wars for decades, all of this destruction, all of these bombs that are manufactured by Lockheed Martin, that are manufactured by Raytheon, all of these aircraft that are manufactured by Boeing, all of these NGOs that are helping to assist the physical invasion and the brownification of America, the homosexualization of America, the degeneracy and the acceptance of pedophilia in schools, that it's normal and you should live a life of fear for speaking out against it, because if you do, the FBI will come and crush you like they did in Virginia for being in opposition to your children being raped in public school bathrooms. That's the FBI. That's the DOJ. That's the federal law enforcement apparatus that Grok admits, yes, is controlled by people who are directly tied to Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking operation and holds high-ranking government officials and law enforcement officials captive. They're captured. Our military brass, the people making the decision for where these fleets go. What about the nuclear submarines, by the way, that are off the coast of Russia, just waiting to intervene in this NATO war, this proxy war between Russia and Ukraine, this what we now know to be a brothers' war. And we called it from the very beginning when we pointed out who settled Ukraine in 1991, when those borders were arbitrarily scribbled on a map. And that country was handed over to a Jew, a homosexual called Volodymyr Zelensky, after we used violence to unseat a democratically elected administration that was there in 2014. Our CIA affected that coup. That Jew media made that coup look like a popular BLM-style uprising. These people have been lying and carrying out mass slaughter of innocent people, namely children, to protect themselves, to be allotted the opportunity to vilely rape and discard more children in the future.